What's the name of the book?
So the book's called The Single Heart, and it's by Langré Edwards. And I really just like short books sometimes when it comes to like scriptural stuff, because boy, I was born in church, read scripture, like I don't need to be told something that I already know 20 times. I actually would prefer to have something that was short, that could make me go, oh, that's really interesting, and explore another part. So with that said, how our Father void affects our view of God. Can you imagine the mind shift and rewiring it takes for God to become a father in our reality? Considering what we've discussed, when God steps into our lives and we welcome him, we become his daughters or sons, for example. No, I didn't say we become his puppets or playthings, or that we have it all together, like type of people. No, we become daughters. But the problem is that we do not know how to be daughters with our Father present. Our knowledge of someone who loves us in a wholly pure and unconditional way is limited because of our experiences. Our understanding of someone being protective of our emotions, hearts, and purity is contrasted by a reality of often feeling vulnerable to the rejection and disregard of these values. Our misindependent, hell-bent mentality leaves little willingness to understand the beauty of submission. We have become so programmed to harden our softness, reject our femininity, and even at times wrongfully empower one another, that we have lost sight of God's original purpose and love it holds. Being a daughter of God is an honor and a privilege. If we first acknowledge these errors in our thinking and desire to change our positions, then we might have an impact on the next generation, which not only will rock this world, but also glorify and honor our Father. And then there's also like just other parts where she talks about like, I don't know, like how pornography kind of influences your mind. And it's really interesting because that whole chapter is about the father void. Obviously that one was related to the ladies, but I want to see if I can find a part where she talks a bit more about just general. I've spoken with women of various age groups on the role their fathers played in their lives. Each individual story is different. Some grew up with no dad present, some grew with a father to sickness or disease. Even those who had a father in the home have expressed a disconnect between themselves and their pops. Whichever reality may be, when a woman carries a hole in her heart and a longing in her soul for the genuine, pure, protective and authoritative element her father brings, there is some residue that she must take care of. Without a proper example of this in the home, we learn all kinds of warped and distorted opinions about men. One generation of broken women potentially teaches the next how to be independent and learn how to function in a world not needing a man because of this absence. Brokenness, because of this absence, they encourage young women to learn how to live on guard with one foot in and one foot out in case a man should cheat or leave. One mother's expression of dislike, distaste, or dissatisfaction towards a child's father plants seeds of apathy in the child. Women then potentially grow up with hostile attitudes towards men, believing things like all men are dogs, men can't be trusted, and there are no good men out there. They tend to act out in promiscuous behavior because of their lack of attention and love. They may practice the terrible habit of manipulating men with their emotions, words, bodies to gain what they need. The continuation of dishonor, disrespect, vindictiveness wears down even the strongest of men. Therefore, the cycle continues. And I just personally just like, I need to hear a perspective from a man's point of view about that issue, and I also need to hear a woman's perspective about that type of issue, because if I'm going to be connecting with someone and I'm going to get married to a wife, and my woman's going to become my wife, we have to understand certain things like from the ground up. If that doesn't even correspond, there is no way that God's success, wealth will stay within a successful relationship without you having that level of understanding about, even the ground up of the generations, because we're talking about ancestries as well. Ancestry, if there's like a certain pattern, I think the book is really interesting how it goes into the different layers of what makes you an interesting Christian, or the layers.
That kind of lines up with the question that I was going to ask you based off of what you read. Like, when it comes to dating and relationships, do you feel as if that you can date a woman that I would say that doesn't have that fear of God in her, or who doesn't more or less like align with Christianity beliefs or Christianity ideas? Do you feel as if it's possible to be in a relationship with that type of woman?
Bearing in mind, I feel like Christianity is a very open book in terms of like a faith structure, and so like you just really have to just read it, and it's like you can read it from so many places, right? From Ethiopia to Greek, like kind of like ways of thinking. So like Ethiopia to Greece, I said it on purpose so you can obviously do your research. But I find it like, I have to relate to a woman that's got a fear of God, because, bro, when you date someone that don't have a fear of God, the person you have to kind of be to keep up with that, you're even like yourself. So that's just my realization, is that, you need to have an idea of a career, so you don't just go around destroying shit, basically.
So you think morality and ethics are implicit to religion? You don't think you do?
I don't associate being a good Christian as being a good human being. So like, I just feel like you need to have a balance of both. So for example, I know people who are good Christians, but I wouldn't want to sit in a room with them in certain modern like public places, because I don't necessarily think they would know how to treat people at different stages of their life or races in a more humane way. Whereas there are some Christians that I think are bang on, the love of God and moving and being able to exist in different spaces without, trying to prove to someone 24/7 how perfect they are. Does that make sense?
Could you be an atheist and a good person?
Yeah, of course.
It's the fear of God that polices you.
Yeah.
I feel like when you have no fear of the afterlife and you choose to be a good person with no other implications, I feel like that makes you more of a purely good person. I feel like I've grown up around so many Christians who just do things because God's watching. It's that fear of a higher power as opposed to I'm choosing to be or do better.
Why is that the lead in terms of like moderating behaviour? Because I think that love is a more powerful force than fear.
What do you think the fear of God means based off of like you hearing that term? Because I think I understand what you're saying, but I have a different meaning for it.
In the context that you were talking about in terms of the book, not controlling one's behaviour, but definitely moderating your behaviour because you have this fear of God. There's a consequence, it's like, I can't do this because my mum's going to find out, that kind of parental, oh shit, when my dad find out, my mum find out. That's how I view it.
Mm-hmm.
When people talk about the fear of God and how it, how it's meant to instruct you in your life.
When I say the fear of God, to me, like because he brought up a good point about how like when they don't have a fear of God, it's just more or less that awareness that you believe that something higher than you is actually it exists, basically.
And it's also in relation to the book. So because your question was about, you said what the actual part that I was reading was about fathers and the idea of like the lack of fathers in our homes and how that would perceive your perception of something that is bigger than you. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or it's overbearing you. So like the fear of God in English means the fear of God, but in Hebrew it means wisdom. And this is again, we're talking about like translations in terms of like, I have the love of God, and the love of God is probably what keeps me grounded and supreme as a human being within myself. The fear of God is what stops me from knowing that, bro, I could destroy someone and hurt someone, like because they've done some type of wrong, because I understand there's something bigger than me that goes, oh, actually, there might be something bigger outside of my perspective. So the love of God is what keeps me in love with myself, but then, do you know what I'm trying to say? So I feel like, this isn't me to do. I always feel like whenever I end up talking in book club about something to do with like faith, it turns into like, I'm trying to prove maybe like why you should have a faith. It's like, I believe that everyone has a faith anyway. I just discuss I feel brave enough to discuss why you have faith and ways to actually engage in that as an engine, so that in any situation, any places you go, any countries you travel to, you're going to be good because you know like you've been brought here for a reason. So, but yeah, we were talking about love of God and fear of God. So again, just to bring it to a full circle, I do feel like the love of God is important. So that's much more to do with your relationship and to do with beyond whatever people believe or perceive of, and the fear of God of like understanding that we were created around other human beings and that we're not the only human being in a circle,
Everyone is okay with characteristic approaches until it comes to God, which is super weird to me. So we're okay with within our relationships, like having boundaries and the consequences of those boundaries, and of course being motivated by a love for an individual as well.
I think the stick is your love for that person, and that's kind of like what will keep you ultimately doing bad things. Even taking it from like a self-love point of view, right? I feel like it's a lack of love of oneself that leads people to make bad decisions. But if you're a person who truly loves yourself, then you won't engage in activities like, that will cause harm to yourself because you have a love of yourself. I just think that love is a more powerful force than fear.
Let's say you engage in a relationship with someone and you're both like, yeah, we love each other, but you never have that, you never place the boundary in a relationship. You stepping out of that relationship isn't a bad thing. it hasn't been defined. It's open. Do you know what I mean? Like you could technically just go and step out, act how you want, etc. outside of the relationship, and there would be no like moral implication on what it means to a relationship.
So
until someone sets that boundary and says, "Hey, I didn't like what you did."
I hear what you're saying, because you brought up a beautiful point. I hear what he's saying, because to me it's like it's all about the balance, like yin and yang. Like you have to have that equal amount of love and fear, because it's like if you don't have that fear of losing somebody.
Here's an example, right?
Okay.
So, like, there's unconditional love in terms of like parents. I don't have a fear of like losing my dad, because I know that the love that my dad has for me, there's nothing that I could do that would take away that love. But
nothing?
that doesn't, yeah, I definitely know it. I feel it in my heart that there's like that unconditional love that my dad has for me. I don't think there's anything I could do, and my dad's even told me I don't think there's anything, I shouldn't even be telling you this on Ella because you might act, but I don't think there's anything you really do that could cause me to lose my dad's love. Now knowing that, it doesn't mean that like, because I'm secure in that I'll start to act out. I think actually when you're secure in the fact that you know that this person loves you, the bones of you, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's like a platonic relationship, whether it's even like a relationship, like a family relationship, when you are confident in that love, I feel like you act a certain way, and I think it's only insecurity that leads people to test boundaries, quote unquote, or to like, you know, just be disrespectful, to be like ego and this person, will they love me? But it's about comfort, and I think when you're comfortable in love, you don't test boundaries like that.